The last interview before the big one. I have no idea what I even want to do. I'm like stun locked. I thought about inviting like a good friend on. But I don't know. I thought about having someone interview me too, but I don't know who to have interview me. And it's like I'm like stuck in like analysis paralysis. It's like I don't know what to do.
I feel like being interviewed would be fun. You should get like one of the comic book Yeti guys
Yeah,
to interview you.
great
Yeah.
minds think alike. Because I definitely was like, it'd be cool to have the wheels spun around.
Yeah. Plus, you're great, they're great. Why not? It just makes sense.
So for everyone that is watching, we are going to be dropping a link in the chat. This is pre-orders for the book we're going to be talking about today. Hans Vogel is Dead Volume 2 from Dark Horse. This will be dropping in July, on July 14th for $29.99. So right there is a link to get that pre-order in. Be sure to check it out. If you're unable to pre-order it, share it around with your friends, your family, anyone in between. I loved it. I had a chance to check some of it out. And definitely a phenomenal book. So I'm ready to get started. Sierra, are you good?
I'm ready.
All right, let's
What a
begin this
nice
party.
intro.
Let's begin this party in 3, 2, 1. Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Caper Sarah Cody, and we're keeping it geekly with our new guest, Sierra Barnes. We're here to break down Hans Vogel is Dead, Volume 2, and everything in between. Excuse the raspy voice. I was keeping it geekly a little too hard and lost the voice a little bit, but that does not stop the geek. Sierra, welcome to the show. How are you doing this morning?
I am excited to be keeping it geekly with my man Cody. Huge fan, longtime listener, first time caller. Is that people say that?
That is awesome. So we were talking a little bit backstage, but since we are officially live and on the air, where did it all begin for you? I mean, comic book creation is such a big journey to dive into. And you had a pretty interesting story about like what kind of like helped you get started on your journey. So where did it all start for you?
Yeah, when I was a young warthog, I read comics. Yeah, my dad was a comic aficionado, but also an army brat, and he had a collection of European comics that he had kept from when he was a kid. So I grew up reading Tintin and Asterix and Obelix, and because he had them in German, I thought they were German books. Uh, Imagine my surprise growing up, learning about the Belgian comics industry. But the comics, and comics were always a part of my life. And when the internet started happening in like middle school and high school, I got really into web comics because that was like comics online. What? Crazy? Anyone could do it. That was, for me, probably the pinnacle of cool things that people could do. But I also thought that was like too cool for something like someone like me to
Hmm.
do. And I was going to do a respectable job, like be a historian, which is what I ended up going to school for. I graduated college. I had all of these degrees. I did a Fulbright scholarship in Austria. Hooray! I came back home. Like was in my rural California childhood home, living with my parents, trying to apply to all of these jobs, and not having much luck. But eventually, I was like, you know what? Who's going to stop me from making a webcomic at this point in my life? I'm just gonna do it. And that was 10 years ago. So now I am a full-time comic creator. I have the dubious honor of being, no, it's an honor. I have the honor of being the first and only cartoonist in residency at the Torpedo Factory in Alexandria, Virginia. Um, and yeah, I make comics and I love it. It's great. I wouldn't do anything else.
I would hold that accolade as high as humanly possible. You better hold it as high as humanly possible. So was Hans Vogel like the start for you with the webcomic series?
Yeah, I had the initial idea in 2010, which feels like a different world ago. It's
Isn't it
it's
crazy? That's
wild looking
16
back.
years ago almost, right? It's like, stop
Yeah,
that, stop that.
God, yeah. I'm like my son is so old. Like, oh my God. But I had the initial idea. I drew a bunch of pages for it, but like I was in high school, and so I didn't like do anything much more with it. And then 5 years later, I kind of spent that time doing a bunch of research that I like would end up doing for, at the time it wasn't for the project, but then it kind of became for the project, because a lot of the things that I was studying in school I was interested in anyway, and that had relevance to the story. I like being in Austria was awesome because I could go around and ask people questions about like their favorite fairy tales, but also like, you know, what were you guys doing during the years 1939 to 1946? Normal questions. People were mostly very nice. Austria is funny because when you say the war, they think of World War One,
Hmm.
and like not the case in Germany. Different different war. But yeah, I just like I asked a lot of questions, learned a lot of stuff, did a lot of research, read a lot of books, watched a lot. There's a lot of great. This sounds really kind of like weird and unprofessional, but great YouTube videos about like researching World War II. If you know where to look,
Hmm.
World War WW2 TV does a lot of streams from like experts in the field, and I got really into them in 2020. Um, Philip Blood, shout out to Dr. Philip Blood for not only having a great name, but for writing a great book on hunting culture in the Luftwaffe that I use a lot. Um,
You know,
yeah.
there's so many crazy stories that circulate World War II. Some of the favorite rabbit holes I went into, like Hitler with the secret base in Antarctica, like the Hollow Earth, and the alien technology. I mean, there is some insane stuff, and some of it kind of like insanely makes sense. It's like the technology advancements and stuff that were happening. It's like, holy crap. Wouldn't that be insane if there's actually just a Nazi base in Hollow Earth? Like, what are we going to do? Um, I love when stuff from real life bleeds into comic books, right? Like, you know, you took your study and there's so much there. Like, why not run off with it? You know, I was always told, write what you know best. And it sounds like you did that to the T. Where did we get Hans Vogel out of this? Is he based on an actual character, or you know, where does this character come from?
Yeah, that's a he. I've gotten a lot of questions about whether he's like a specific guy, and Hans Vogel is like a very generic name. Like Hans is, I picked Hans because it is like potentially the most German name. Sorry to all the Ulrichs out there, but Hans is he's sort of the fairy tale protagonist, right?
Hmm.
And Vogel, aside from being a pretty common last name in Germany, is it means bird. It's a pun. He's a pilot. The name means bird. I learned after the fact because I have sort of like a ping out for when people mention Hans Vogel that the mayor of Berlin in 1930s actually was also named Hans Vogel, and the Holocaust Museum has the diary of an 8-year-old boy who made it to America whose name is also Hans Vogel. So I'm waiting for the inevitability of encountering a real Hans Vogel. I've encountered people whose last names are Vogel, but I have yet to come across a Hans Vogel. So if your name is really Hans Vogel, um, yeah, I mean, I'll sign your book. Let me know. I
And
think
if
that would be
you're
really
like
fun.
a
Yeah,
deceased ace fighter, I mean, maybe this
yeah,
book was spiritually, you know, guided by you. So where do we
yeah.
where do we find Hans Vogel in the first volume? Set the pace for us. For anyone that is listening, diving into this for the first time, wondering what this series is about, what happens to Hans Vogel in the first volume?
So Hans is a German pilot in World War II. He is fighting with the Luftwaffe in the Battle of Britain. And in the very first chapter, this isn't a spoiler, also it's in the title, he dies. He gets shot down and killed over the Battle of Britain. And he wakes up in the sort of surreal afterlife of the Brothers Grimm fairy tales that he loved reading. And he sort of has to unpack the fascism that he grew up learning in Nazi Germany, and navigate this new world. And we see the flashbacks of like the real life history of him growing up, and counteracted with his new life, sort of unpacking his internalized fascism, learning to be a better person, but also encountering fairy tale threats like werewolves and witches, and also oops, fascism may be coming to the fairy tale world. Is he going to do better this time around?
So, were these fairy tales inspired by your talks with the people from Austria? Like, are those like fairy tales that are just directly from that part of the world?
Yeah, so I do try, like, fairy tales are hard to say like that they're from somewhere. I like the term collected in better,
Yeah.
because it, like, if you're going to start doing like where is Little Red Riding Hood from, like, okay, we'll be here all day. Everyone has a version of this
And some of
story.
those are
There are
really
certain,
dark too, right? Some of those are pretty horrific.
my favorite, like the Grimms are like some of my problematic faves, and my favorite part about them is that their collection of fairy tales was their linguistics PhD. So they were collecting stories not based off of content, but more based off of like, does this show the dialect in an interesting way? Which is great because that means they weren't editing for content. Which, so like you get things like weird, messed up stories where moms eat their kids,
Yeah.
and then like all of the stepmothers in fairy tales are later edition edits, because most of them were just the moms
Hmm.
in the original stories. But then you also have stories that are just like nonsense. Like so much of German folklore is, hey, my cousin went over to that castle over there and he saw a ghost and then he died. Whoa. And I think it's beautiful. I think that it's cool that there is a space in folk tales for, these really enduring emotional
Hmm.
images like Cinderella and Little Red Riding Hood. And some of my personal favorites are Glückskind and Pechvogel, which I would probably translate to like lucky child, and like Glückskind like literally means lucky child, like, or like a
Hmm.
lucky duck would be like an equivalent English expression. But a Pechvogel is a word for like an unlucky person, but it literally means a bird covered in tar. And it's just about a princess who gets everything that she wants, and then she meets this like unfortunate little poor boy, and she tricks her dad into like basically letting the poor boy hang out with her because she gets everything she wants. And I'm like, I don't know what moral lesson I'm supposed to be learning from this
Yeah,
story, but
this is
this is
going all
rad.
over.
I'm like, hell yeah, let's go.
And they used to
Sick.
tar people back in the day too. So I wonder if that has any correlation, like with the tar bird meaning.
I think it has more to do with if you see a bird covered in tar, damn, that's an unlucky bird, isn't
Yeah,
it?
don't hang out with
Like
that
that's
bird.
probably the saddest thing I've ever seen. Maybe I do refer to Hans as a Pechvogel in the first volume because I think it's really funny that again it's his name, and also he's stumbling out of a fallen aircraft, so he's also probably covered in tar. That one's for me. Sometimes you make a little joke just for you, and no one else is gonna get it. But shout out to any German speakers in the audience. Maybe
And
you
for
got it.
anyone that is in the audience listening, right there is a link to pre-order Volume 2 right now. It is coming out in July. You have a few months to get that pre-order in. But why wait? Get that pre-ordered in today. Be one of the first to get that locked in. So, Sierra, I really love the art for this series. Can you tell us a little bit about how you developed your style?
I love that question because the answer is I draw a lot.
I don't
Like
know.
yeah, like draw style to me is a lot like having an accent. Like it's just the way you talk, and you develop it by like the people that you hear, the places that you're around, the things that you like. And I think that a style is a lot like that.
Hmm.
It's mostly there because that's the way that I find is like makes sense to draw for me. But I also love looking at like I'm such a sucker for 19th century woodcut
Hmm.
engravings. Like that is my jam. I love ancient art. I think that like ancient Egyptian tomb reliefs, no one was doing it like them. The stylization game is unmatched. I love like medieval manuscripts.
Hmm.
I literally have like a 13th century psalm tattoo on one arm, and I have a woodblock tattoo on my other. Like I love that, and I think that it reflects in like I have real chunky inks. I love big chunky lines. I love getting way too into the details. I love like really bright bold colors, and greens. There's probably like the next person who's like, Sierra, you need to limit your color palette. I'll be like, okay, but there's going to be 58 shades of green in this one. So
And there's some really good shades of green too. Um, I really enjoyed the designs, the character designs as well. What comes first for you? Is it the story, or do you have like a scene in particular in your head, like maybe a panel, and then you kind of just create from that?
I had the characters rattling around forever, and they've like changed quite a bit since the initial iteration. But like, sort of, I have characters, I have their basic traits, I let them run around for a little bit, and a lot of times there's a lot of research going on in between. But I had sort of Hans as this like kind of he's kind of a wimp. He doesn't have a lot of backbone. He just kind of wants to go, like, he wants to be liked more than anything, but he also kind of wants to keep his head down and not be noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of once I figured out the setting being Nazi Germany for him, I was like, okay, so the narrative heart of this book is sort of like what you have this. I feel like growing up in America, and watching Indiana Jones movies, you have this idea of Nazis as being like these like almost automatons, these like inhuman monsters. And the more research I did into it, I'm like, oh no, the really scary part about them is that they are people.
Yeah.
And they're like you and me, and you can be friends with them and related to them, and like, and that's the real horror to me. So I wanted Hans to be like a guy,
Yeah.
but also he's a Nazi. So you have this like tension. I just got this email from someone who had read the first book, and it really made my whole day, because he was like, I want to like Hans, but part of me can't like him because he's a Nazi. And I'm like, that is exactly what I'm going for with him. And you know, he changes over the course of the book, and he has to confront himself. But this fundamental dichotomy of like wanting to be a good person,
Mm-hmm.
but like not growing up in a world or a society that lets you be a good person. And if you remove that society, what do you do then? That's really what I'm like wrestling with here. And then there's Reineke, who is the little girl character, and she's perfect. She's never done anything wrong in her life. She started perfect. She's perfect now. That's it. You can like her. You don't have to feel weird about liking her. That's fine.
I really think that's an interesting concept to tackle. Having someone who's initially, not one of the good guys, struggle with that and kind of reform throughout the book and try to change his ways. It's always interesting to look at it like that, I guess, because you're right. I mean, some of these people, that's you have your Nazis, like the skinheads, the the swastikas, people who blatantly show it. Then you have your ones who hide it. And those are the scary ones, right? Because it's like, those are your politicians, those are your people in higher power, police, people who are supposed to be saving you. You don't know who they really are until they actually show you. And I really think that's a cool concept to tackle. What kind of inspired you to go that route with this character?
A couple of different things. I was doing a study abroad program in Trier, and the woman I was staying with, a very nice older lady, who was perfectly lovely. And we're getting along great. I was studying at the local university, and one of the things I had to do was I had to print out a paper. So I go, I ask her to use her printer, and I go into her computer room and turn on the light, and there's a framed photo of three men, two men in a Wehrmacht uniform and one man in an SS uniform.
Oh, Jesus.
Just on the wall. And I'm like, I'm a little freaked out. I'm a little bit like, okay, like, whoa, what's going on there? So, I go back downstairs and I'm like, hey, Frau Nillis, what's the situation in who are those guys? And it was her three brothers. Yeah, and it was just this like, oh yeah, I'm here, and these are people, and like, to this day I'm a little bit like, man, you didn't have any other family photos you could put up in the computer room? That's the family photo.
Yeah, that's the best you got.
But, like, yeah, maybe take another photo. And it was funny because her mother was still alive, and we would go and see her occasionally, and I wanted to ask her all kinds of questions. She refused to talk to me because she thought I was Russian for some reason. and like you sort of encounter it's one thing reading about it in books, and you encounter real life people for whom that was their lived experience,
Hmm.
and it is a completely different smack in the face. And part of my concern was that I was like, hey, I grew up thinking that Nazis were this one-dimensional evil villain like caricature. Are people going to be able to recognize what a Nazi is if they're not wearing armbands and jackboots? Like what? I think a lot of people. Hopefully, it's better now. I'd like to think so, because it has certainly been in the modern current events. But I think a lot of people, certainly when I was coming up with the story in 2010, 2015, couldn't really tell me what a Nazi, like what were Nazi beliefs, what were fascist beliefs,
Hmm.
beyond like anti-Semitism, which like, yes, correct, that's great. But a lot of people were surprised when I would say that like, yeah, hyper nationalism, believing that your country is the best, and that country has innate traits, that is a fascist belief. Um, like the idea of these like firm innate hierarchies is a fascist belief. Um, and that's kind of what worried me, because a lot of people who have fascist beliefs, who I have talked to over the years, and like they wouldn't describe themselves as fascist
Hmm.
because a lot of these beliefs have sort of become normalized in a lot of places. And I think this is really this is getting really spicy. I think that's part of why we are where we are today, because um, yeah, I highly recommend reading Umberto Eco on fascism or fascism. I recommend reading Hannah Arendt. I know those are like kind of the like I don't want to say baby's guide to like defining fascism, but certainly they are. There are many good reasons why they're always being recommended, and I'm certainly throwing my voice on the pile of recommending
You know,
reading these guys.
the hyper nationalism, that does sound a little too close to home recently, especially the last few years. So, I mean, it's funny how this series like started, so long ago, but it's pretty relevant now. It feels. So we have volume two. Volume. What happens in volume two? I mean, we had volume one happen with Hans Vogel. Um, Kind of, being dead, figuring out who he is, kind of working on himself. What's the pitch for the volume two?
I'm very excited about volume two because we get to go into a little bit more about like the society of the world. Because the first book is Hans, he's running around, but it's most of it is him by himself, having a mental breakdown. But he now is sort of like the greater world, and we get to learn more about like Reineke, what's her deal? We get to learn more about the society that they're in. There's a local king that they go to visit, King Ludwig, and his family. There is there, of course, there's a princess because, of course, it's a fairy tale, but she's also a bare knuckle boxer, and that again, sometimes you do things just for you. But there is a lot of the discussion about like, okay, here is the society that we've built up, and also what is the threat of fascism within the society. We learn more about the Erlking, who is the big sort of foreboding baddie of the
Hmm.
series. And while we haven't quite met him yet, his shadow is growing longer and darker. And I think that um, that sort of reflects living in the shadow that we've all been living under for the last couple of probably 5 or so years, trying to get that feeling of ominous foreboding in the text. And to top it all off, it's got my favorite theme of, or I guess genre flavor perhaps, of folk tales, which is the wild hunt.
So what is there any challenges at all with converting a webcomic to comic format? Like, was there any big changes you had to make to the series to adapt it?
Yeah, I've had to format this book so many goddamn
She's like, I
times.
don't even want to talk
I've
about it.
Oh my god. So to be fair, when you're making a web comic, they just let you. It's not like anyone was telling me what to do. I was just figuring it out on my own. So especially the first chapter, like I didn't have a standard page size for the pages in the first chapter. I was just kind of drawing them and throwing them up there. So they had random DPI, they had random dimensions, bleed. Who's that? I don't know her. And so I had to like reformat all of that. And the other big thing is when I got picked up by a publisher for volume one, before when it was a webcomic, I just used a typeface, and it was a serif typeface, and everyone was roasting me about it. Like I had a bunch of friends in comics and professors in my master's program who were like, damn, Sierra, using this serif font, this is ugly as hell. And I'm like, well, you're not paying me, so I don't care. And then a publisher picked me up and they were like, Sierra, this font is ugly as hell. And I'm like, okay, you are paying me, so I will do it. And Mel Gilman gave me some fantastic and infuriating advice, which is true, but I wish it weren't. And they said that your handwriting is always going to look best with your art style because it's from the same hand. And I did a bunch of tests for new fonts, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just go ahead and throw a little test in there with my handwriting. And of course the editor was like, damn, we want that handwriting one. I'm like,
Thank you.
then yeah, great, thanks. So then I had to re-letter the 300-page book by hand in like 2 weeks. And then I had to do it again because the first publisher was based in the UK, so I had to do English spelling, and then I had to go back to American spelling when Dark Horse picked it up. So my biggest advice for people who are looking to do webcomics and are even a little teeny tiny eensy weensy but interested in going to print someday, maybe use a template. Save yourself all of this time. Use a template, please.
So is there a big difference? Is there a big difference translating from the UK to the United States?
No, I just had to go and check all of my spelling.
When you said that, I was like, wait a minute, there's two different types of English?
Yeah, I had to throw a couple of U's in there and then take them out. I like including a lot of German dialogue too, so fortunately I didn't have to change that. Although I am a little bit mad because Dark Horse maybe standardized to English quotation mark. German quotation mark, the first quotation mark is like 2 commas in English. It's like upside down. So I did that with all of the German quotes. And they were like, we don't like that, make it English. My editor, Jenny, is very good. I like them a lot. I love them. Love you, Jenny. But I am a little bit salty about, there are a couple of things that I'm salty about. One is that I spent 2 hours doing like this beautiful fracture font, like based off of a like 14th century manuscript that I found. And it's like there's like an announcer character who's announcing the appearance of the princess. And so he's saying her name in like a fancy German fracture font. And I spent 2 hours on this damn thing. And I was like, this looks amazing. I am the queen. I am so good at this. Holy shit. I just did this by hand. Sorry if I can't swear on here. Whatever.
You're good.
It was worth it. It was worth it. And I submitted it, and my editor was immediately like, it's really hard to read. Can you simplify it?
It's like, all right, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I did, but I spent the entire time bitterly complaining to all of my friends.
And that really goes to show you, too. I mean, getting picked up by a publisher is awesome, of course. But that takes away some of your liberty, your liberties and your freedom to do what you want with your book. Like, you got to, kind of go by some guidelines, go by some suggestions. So, man, is this book also 300 pages or...
Sure is. Ask me about my tendonitis.
That is awesome. So once again, guys, right here is the link for the last time. Help me shut up by pre-ordering it. 300 pages for $29.99, dropping July 14th from Dark Horse. What's your favorite part about creating this series?
All of it. It's one of those things where it's like I love every stage, but also I complain bitterly during every stage. But I can't help myself. I love doing the research. I love sketching out pages and making it real. I love writing scripts and getting to like have banter between the characters. I love inking it, making it feel like it's coming to life. Coloring sucks. Actually, I hate coloring. It's fine. I get to use many greens when I color, so that's good. But everything else, yeah, I love. People ask me like, why don't you have a colorist for this? And I'm like, that's I love that question. I don't. I hate that question. The answer is this is my project, and I'm sure that I would be a monster to work with on my child, my horrible son.
So
I
what
love
about
it so much.
coloring is adverse for you? I mean, is it just the color theory, putting colors down, or just the extra work?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it is just sometimes I feel very insecure about my colors. I am a self-taught artist, so a lot of it has been a trial and error experience. I know like part of my reformatting for book one was that because it was drawn for a computer screen, all of the colors were super dark, which
Oh
is another problem when you
no.
are a self-taught artist who primarily works digitally, is that you have to sort of get into the habit of like not only CMYK, but also like sometimes I will like print out random comic pages just to see how they print like
Yeah.
on my home computer and know if I have to like lighten or darken. It has been a learning process. I think that like, and you know, with any webcomic, I part of why I enjoy webcomics so much is you can see the growth of the artist over like the time that they are working on the project. Oh, we got some
Mhm.
people back here a little bit.
Hey, they're keeping
Sorry.
it geekly too. No big deal.
Yeah, exactly. This is a public art studio, so you never know what's going to happen. But like, yeah, you grow, you improve as you are doing the story. There really isn't any. It's my advice for anyone trying to get better at art is just do the art a
Yeah.
bunch, and that's really the case. I'm sure that in like I used to think that my inking was like my least favorite part and that it was my weakest, and now I think that it's my best. And I'm sure by the end of book three, I will be like, coloring is the best, inking sucks, or I'll find some new thing to be not happy about. But yeah, you know, you gotta always be striving to be better at something. Right now, I'm striving to be better at colors.
So we got a mention of a book three. How long is this series like looking to last for? Do you have any sort of roadmap laid out, or?
I do. Book three should be the last book. Hopefully, we can arrange for um, Dark Horse to pick up book three. So go tell your friends, tell your enemies, order book two. Hooray! Um, but yeah, book three should be the last one. I have an outline. I've started working on some scripts for it. I've started doing some preliminary research for it. I'm really excited. I know that it's like, ooh, being excited about your new book, groundbreaking, but also like, yeah, this is something that I've been working on in one form or another for 15, almost 16
Yeah.
years now, which makes my bones feel like they're turning to dust as I say that. But I love it. I wouldn't have been working on this for this long if I didn't love it and really believe in it and really hope that everyone else out there is just as crazy as I am.
It's pretty remarkable too for your first series to be, you know, three volumes long, almost 1,000 pages long, you know, and to see the evolution over the years, you know, 15, you know, that's a long time to put into a series and put into work. And you're right, you know, with anything in life, just doing it, you know, the consistency of just doing it, and waking up. And you don't have to do 100% every day, right? Like, even if you just give 20 one day and maybe, you know, 110 the next, you know, just showing up is half the battle. And it's almost like, you know, you wish you could learn because failing, it, you know, shows you what works best. Then you learn that little shortcut to work through it. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, man, I wish I would have learned all those shortcuts first. But, you know, you don't learn how to properly utilize those shortcuts until you fail enough, right?
Yeah, the shortcuts aren't going to make sense if you just learn the shortcuts. You really do have to learn the whole way around. One of the big things is that I letter before I ink now because I spend enough time in the first volume covering up things that I really like. Spent a lot of time drawing with speech bubbles at the last moment, and I will say the lesson of lettering before you ink is one that you can tell people, but you won't emotionally feel it until you spend just way too long beautifully inking a 17th century wallpaper that's being covered up by someone saying like okay, and you're like cool, no, this is great, I love this. You will remember for next time.
So, Sierra, I know this is your first time on the show, But we always love asking for a piece of advice from the creator and what they're up to outside of creating. And you've already given us some awesome advice just in terms of, creating webcomics. So I feel like maybe capitalizing on that would be awesome. So for anyone out there looking to just dive into creating and they choose webcomics as their first platform, as someone who's been on there for, 15, 16 years putting the work in, what would be some of your biggest do's and don'ts for that creator to help them out on their journey?
Oh yeah. Own your website. If you are uploading onto the internet and you are uploading onto a site like Tapas or Webtoon, they will control what you can put on there with their terms of service. They will control whether or not they get your rights. You will save yourself a lot of heartbreak by um, having it on your website, whether you mirror it on your website and have it on another one of those big sites or not. It just the peace of mind knowing that if one of those sites goes down or decides to get into some horrible AI policy or suddenly decides that people wearing headphones is inappropriate to have in a comic and your comic is about DJs, like you will have a place to go. To always read the fine print. A lot of times, these webcomic, Tokyo Pop is sort of the notorious example, and they're showing their faces around again, which I think is fascinating. But if you get a contract from someone, you read that thing carefully, you find a lawyer or an agent or someone in your life who knows how to read a contract, and you get them to read it because you will save yourself a lot of heartbreak and probably money. Um, Three, use a template, even if you're like, there's maybe a 0.001 chance that I want to print this out. Use a template. Oh my god. Um, Four, probably probably the biggest one. Make it for you. You will you have to be your project's biggest voice and advocate, and if you
Hmm.
don't think that your project is cool, no one really is, and it doesn't matter how weird it is. I started Hans Vogel as a webcomic because I was like, there's no way on this miserable earth that like dead Nazi is going to be like a publishable, like pitchable project.
Yeah.
um I'm just gonna take that straight to webcomics, and it ended up working. It turns out it is a publishable project.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Not me. Make the weird stuff. Make the stuff that makes you excited. Make the stuff that makes you want to get out of bed and do it. And even if your readership is like four sickos around the world, that's four sickos around the world that are better off because you made your project. And I think that's really great.
I love that. Shout out to all the sickos out there keeping it
Shout
geeky.
out to all the sickos. Absolutely. 100%.
So, what are you up to outside of creating? What books are you checking out? What movies are you watching? What video games are you playing?
Oh man, yeah. I feel like I only play video games when I'm like off of a book. And since I submitted like the files for volume two were sent in earlier this year, this is like the first time that I've been playing video games since like probably 2022. Uh, I played Hades 2. I greatly enjoyed the gameplay, and the story made me want to chew my leg off like a coyote caught in a trap. But I did hear that they patched a better story in, so I haven't gone back and played it since then. I did just start Kentucky Route 1, which I'm very excited about. That seems like a promising weird game, and I love
I've
weird
never heard about
games.
that. What system is it on?
I think it's on. I'm playing it on Switch, but I think there's a PC and I'm sure other console versions too. What am I reading? Oh, I just saw the new Knives Out movie.
Okay.
I very much liked it. That it was weird. Daniel Craig got to flounce around in a little suit, and it had weird Catholic stuff. So that's like everything that I enjoy. We love a gothic murder mystery.
That's
Uh,
the glass onion. Wasn't there a glass onion Knives Out?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I seen
I
that
think
and
the
I
next
love
is
that. That
from
thing was
there.
insane. Yeah.
It's crazy. They always get the best cast for this. I'm delighted by that. What I'm reading currently. What am I reading currently? Oh, I just finished A Guest in the House by E. Carroll. Chef kiss. No one's doing it like them. Oh my god. I like knocked it out of the park. I already want to read it again. So good.
That
Very
is
spooky.
awesome. That is awesome. And I'll have to check out that game on the Switch. I've been really playing a lot of Final Fantasies. Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy 9. Feeling like I'm a 13-year-old again. It is like the
Hell
perfect
yeah.
winter game to sit out and just, zone out on the couch with. But with that, it is time for us to wrap up. Guys, once again, be sure to pre-order this volume 2. We have the description, the link in the description and right here for you to check out as well. Share with your friends and family. With that being said,
Share it with your enemies.
And your enemies too. Anyone, raise the dead and get them a copy of this book in their hands. With that being said, I hope you all have a lovely Tuesday, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly. I